Sure. My name is Lily, and I'll be your host and your moderator for this call. So some of you may already be familiar with Lessons from Abroad Chicago. For the last 7 years, we've hosted a conference for students returning from abroad. And then when LFA National disbanded about 2 years ago at this point, myself, along with Sophia, Alma, Hannah, and Allison, didn't want to let LFA Chicago fall apart. So we founded a nonprofit to keep it going. LFA Chicago focuses on programming that helps students reflect on their experiences abroad, apply it to their future careers and their studies, plus introduce them to new ways to go abroad again. We really thought it would be appropriate this year to host a new type of event this fall, especially designed for students affected by the pandemic. We know that so many students had to return home early from the spring semester, and many more didn't even get a chance to go abroad at all this year. So this panel discussion we will have today will address those feelings that every returnee faces when returning home, but with the added layer of having to return home early. This is our first event outside of our annual conference, so it's super exciting. And we do plan to host future events both virtually and in person once possible. For those who registered today, we'll be sharing information on future events as they become available. So let's get started. I'm joined by 3 current and former students who had their abroad plans interrupted, altered, or otherwise changed. So, Marissa, Megan, and Karen, can I have you all go around and introduce yourself with your name, the institution you attended or currently attend, graduation year, study abroad destination, and when you want or plan to go. Marissa, can we start with you, then Megan, then Karen? Great.
Hello, I am Marissa Owens. I am a senior at Drake University, and I am supposed to graduate in May 2021. I was supposed to be abroad in Seoul, South Korea, interning at a company and then doing a study abroad semester at Korea University, but I previously have been there in 2018 for the summer for 6 weeks.
Hi, I'm Megan. I graduated from the University of South Carolina in 2018, and I studied abroad in Florence, Italy in 2017. But more recently, I was living and working in Ukraine as a Peace Corps volunteer, and now I work for Peace Corps in Chicago.
Hello, everybody. My name is Karen Draper, and I am a graduate at Gateway Technical College, and I actually graduated this spring with my associate's degree in human services. I was fortunate to participate in the study abroad program. In 2018, I went to Spain, and in 2019, I went to Switzerland and Australia. Specifically, from COVID, I was scheduled to go to Bali this year, but that was canceled.
Great. So, I mean, it really does seem like you are all already very well traveled, which is, such an exciting thing. So there's, I know a lot of you have done different programs, so there may be many ways to answer this question, but maybe let's talk about your first study abroad or when you went abroad. So what led you to the destination that you chose, and why did you choose to go abroad in the first place? And there's really no wrong answers here. I chose my program because I had an internship and a friend had done it before, and that's how I picked mine. So again, no wrong answer. And if we can go in the same order again, that would be great.
So mine is kind of a weird story. I switched majors between my freshman and sophomore years, so I was not going to be able to study abroad for a semester, which is why I went over the summer, because one of the requirements my mother has for college is we all have to study abroad at one point. So I wanted to go somewhere different. I didn't want to go to Europe like a lot of my friends were planning on going, so I wanted to go to Asia, which is why I looked around at different programs, and with how my summer had been planned, it looked South Korea was the best one, and I'd also learned about the history, which is how I landed on there, and Korea University has an amazing business program. So that's kind of why I chose it.
I chose my study abroad program in 2017 because the Florence University of the Arts had a really strong program and relationship with my home university. And I was studying fine arts and painting, so I thought, like, what better place to do it than Florence, Italy? And then I chose Ukraine as a Peace Corps volunteer because of their educational structure. I was teaching English abroad, so I really wanted to go to a place with a strong and emerging education system, which Ukraine definitely has.
My story is actually very different compared to Marissa and Megan. I had no desire to travel. I was actually very scared. And I literally said, I'm not leaving my country. I'm not leaving American soil. And what happened was I was watching a video testimonial of other students that had participated in the study abroad program. And that's when it started for me. I was very, very fearful, very scared to leave my country. So it was kind of like a accidental thing, but I'm very thankful for. Specifically going to Spain, I guess out of all the trips that were offered at my school, that was just the one that resonated with me as far as the day-to-day things that we would be doing, the places that we were going to be going. For some reason, that was the trip that just spoke to me. So that's why I chose Spain compared to the other trips.
That's wonderful. I'm glad that for what reason or another, whether it was a parent or a video, you guys were all led to that. I mean, that's really, as an advisor, that's what we're all looking for. So that's great. So let's get into a little bit about COVID. So where were you when you first heard, or give me a little backstory on where you were or when it was when you first heard about COVID in general, and then subsequently in the location you were living in. So I know for some of you that's America, Ukraine, it can vary. Yeah, that's where we'll start with those questions.
So I was at Drake University. I was in a January term class, and I was actually taking China's economy. So it was a really interesting time to be taking the course because my teacher was Chinese, and she discussed a lot about it. I also have friends who are in China and are from Wuhan, so that I was very aware of it right away and how disaster it was. One of my friends was supposed to be abroad that in the spring in China. So immediately I was very afraid of how it was going to be. I immediately knew my program might not happen, especially because South Korea and China are really close together. And with how the pandemic was spreading, I was very cautious. And then as my semester and then summer went on and they decided to cancel my internship, I was very down. I didn't think that my semester was going to happen, but then my university canceled my program. The program, I believe, actually still did happen. So it was a very different cause. I was on top of it. I didn't think that it was only one country issue.
So when I first heard, I was living in my village in Western Ukraine, and Ukraine put into place lockdowns and regulations a couple of weeks before America did. So my school had closed down already, and there were some travel bans going on. Um, so there was kind of a buzz about us potentially being sent home. But when I actually heard, I was at my friend's house for dinner, and I had about 2 hours to go and pack up my whole house because that night I had to be on a train to the capital. And the whole process took about 1 week from when I left my home in Ukraine until I was in my home in America again. Um, but yeah, it was fast and slow at the same time.
For me, I was home. I live in Racine, Wisconsin. And I can't remember literally if I was at home or on campus when we got the email, because not only am I a student, I was a student worker. So I basically lived at Gateway. But of course, once with all the news and the media, once we saw how things were progressing with the virus, I was pretty certain that all the trips were going to be canceled. But we were just kind of, everybody was like, just waiting to see, are the trips still going to be approved, or are the trips going to be canceled? And so all of the trips all of the trips were canceled. And I don't remember if I was at home or if I was on campus, but I was relieved. Of course, there's some disappointment there, but what's most important is that we're safe and that we're healthy. And my attitude was, if it's God's will for me to go, I'll go. It may not be now, it may be later, but I was actually relieved that the trips were canceled because I felt like that is what was safe and best for all students. So just a little disappointment, but you definitely understand why.
It's so interesting to hear how you guys definitely had different experiences with like understanding it. It seems like Megan, you really dealt with a whirlwind. Marissa, you were on it early on, and Karen, it kind of came to you and you felt a lot of relief. So it's really interesting to hear that perspective for sure. So I heard a lot about like the initial reactions. And Megan, I can't wait to hear about your week. That's going to be very interesting to get into. But before we get there, I want to ask you guys, this is going to require a little bit of math, but I think Megan, you're my only one who can respond to this. How long were you abroad total when you were abroad?
So I was in Florence previously for the whole 5 months, but in Ukraine, I was there for about 20, 21 months, and supposed to be there for 27 months.
Okay. So I want to kind of get into that return process now. And I know that for Karen and Marissa, it was a little bit different for you guys, but I want you to be able to chime in as well. Maybe you had to return from university, or maybe you were living in a different area. So explain to me the return process you went through and what the biggest challenge was for you at that time. Marissa, you can start off and then we'll go Megan and Karen again.
Okay, so I was at Drake University. It was the spring semester. They originally just told us we were gonna go home for 2 weeks, so spring break and then an extra week, and then we were gonna come back. However, I lived in an apartment and I still do, so I could technically come back to Des Moines and stay and be here for the rest of the semester, but I stayed home. I'm from Minnesota, so I stayed home with my family because my brother and sister, my sister's first year of college was last year. My brother's in high school, so I stayed home so I could be with them just in case I was able to go abroad. But now my university is everything is basically online. So right now I live near campus, but I do not have classes in person because my teachers decided not to do classes in person. Other people do it in person. I do have like art classes, like band in person. However, most classes are through Zoom, which is very interesting because it's not going very well, but with your professors. But that's kind of how it's gone for me.
So the actual evacuation process, it was long. It was about a week, and it started when all volunteers were sent an alert. So I got an email and then a phone call from my manager right after that, basically saying that we had a certain amount of time to get to the capital. And I lived about 12 or 13 hours away from the capital. So just because of the train schedule, I was only able to leave that night, or I would miss the deadline that I needed to be there. So I had a couple of hours to pack up my things. I called some friends and had them come to my house just to say bye for now, and got on a train and arrived in the capital. There was a lot of offboarding to be done because thinking that we had 7 months left, we just kind of had to rush through a few things to become returned Peace Corps volunteers officially. And then there was difficulty getting a plane because airways were shutting down. So the US had restrictions, Ukraine had restrictions, and it's near impossible to get a direct flight for 300 people at once. So we had a couple of night stays in the capital just so that we could all get a plane and get out safely. And once we did, arrived back in Washington, D.C. together, which is where we actually all met for the first time nearly 2 years prior, and then all went our separate ways, either by plane or by car after that. And in total, it was about 1 week.
And for me, I was in my last semester and I was doing my second internship and everything shut down. So I had to do everything online. Instructors, they gave us some assignments, work to do. We had to be creative and think of things that we could do to earn hours since I couldn't finish doing my internship. So it was very stressful. It was literally the hardest couple of weeks of school that I've ever had, but I was able to get done, get everything turned in. But this was nothing new. For me, every time we're faced with something challenging or something hard or something uncomfortable, there's something good to come from it. So and of course, people have lost their lives and it's just been so much for everyone. So I wouldn't wish this on anybody, but the good that has come from me from this pandemic is that one of the things that I had to do to earn my hours was read with the ELL students, the English language learners. So actually, on my trip to Spain, there was a gateway instructor who speaks Spanish, but she teaches English. And so, as a way for me to earn my hours, she said, "Karen, would you like to read with some of my students and let them practice their English?" And I said, I knew that I would love it, and I love it. And I've met new students in different ways, whether reading a book or something online. I work with them and I let them help practice their English. I'm still doing it now, even though I've graduated, because I loved it. It has also kind of made me think, like, is teaching something that I want to look into, or teaching abroad? So it's open doors. I have new relationships that I never would have had. So even though it was hard and stressful, some good did come out of it for me.
It sounds like studying abroad opened a lot of doors for you and
It
gave
did.
you a lot of new opportunities. That's wonderful. We love to hear stories like that. That's magical, honestly. So this is where the questions are going to separate just a little bit because you all dealt with such different situations. So for Marissa, when you learned that you wouldn't be able to go abroad for your summer internship and your fall study abroad, what was your initial reaction and how did you get to the point that you pivoted to a remote internship? Can you tell me more about that? And then after that, I'll let Megan and Karen know their questions too.
So honestly, I was really heartbroken right away. I had been planning this since I'd come back from my summer abroad. So it took a while for me to get over it, and I was trying to find an internship either in Minnesota and Des Moines somewhere where I could get an internship because I was a junior going on to be a senior in college, and I wanted to have something for the summer. And I went through the Education Abroad Network, and so I was supposed to be doing the internship through them. And then I was looking through their website just to see if I could do something in the spring if everything had gotten better. And I came across the remote internship. And so I was just thinking, well, since technically I was supposed to be doing this with them anyway, this would maybe be a good idea. And I was actually paired with a company in South Korea. So it worked very well. I still got my experience, just not in person. I do know at the beginning when the internship was first canceled, it was still during the school semester, so a lot of things were uncertain. But then in June, when I had found out that I wasn't going to be abroad, I know that was definitely hard because I was already in my internship, but I was also dealing with that because my internship was a lot of overlapping with making plans with what I was doing. So it was a very interesting experience overall, I would definitely say.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It's nice that you found something that was going to accommodate kind of what you were looking for. And I hopefully we'll have time to get more into your experience with that. But Megan, I wanted to ask you, when you got back home, how are you feeling like once you had been through that whole week-long process and, planes, trains, automobiles, you finally got home. How are you feeling?
I was feeling exhausted and just really overwhelmed and kind of devastated because that is not what I had planned. I don't think I really had time to absorb like all of the goodbyes and all of the closure. Like I was missing this piece. So I was feeling that for about a week, and then a little bit of panic started to sink in because I now also didn't have a job and I wasn't sure what my next steps were. So then I just kind of went into like application mode and started trying to find what what was going to be next for me. And I think this position that I have now really like opened up at the absolutely perfect time. I wasn't done with Peace Corps, like I wasn't ready to be done with this chapter. So becoming a recruiter for the agency that I was just working for as a volunteer was the perfect next step. But those couple of weeks and even first few months were really filled with a lot of um, crazy emotions of just sadness and then, happiness for being safe, but lots of ups and downs.
I definitely believe it. I know that we saw a lot that with our students once we told them they had to come back, there was a lot of mixed emotions, a lot of passionate emotions. And then Karen, I know that you had mentioned that you felt very relieved and you thought it was great because you were feeling safe, and I get that entirely. It totally makes sense. How did you kind of deal with that? Was that you're like resolving, you're like, okay, and now I'm going to figure out how to do online learning? But my question is really like, where did you go from there? Were you like, all right, next time? You seem so positive. I imagine you could say that.
Well, actually, the reason why not being able to participate in my on my trip, the reason why that was a little easier for me was because the biggest, literally right now, the hardest and the biggest disappointment was not being able to graduate because I'm a class of 2020. So I was so excited and looking forward to graduating. A lot of people, they don't think I am as old as I am, but God willing, I'll be 42 in December. So I have two grown children. I was a teenage mom and a high school dropout. So I did not have my high school graduation. I didn't go to prom because the choices that I made, I robbed myself of a lot of those experiences that students or people have in their life. So for me to get and earn my first college degree, I was so excited and looking forward to graduating and to crossing that stage and for them to call my name and to have my family and my friends there cheering for me. So the main reason why not being able to go on my trip is because I just experienced this devastating loss for me. And it's something that is very, very hard, even right now, talking about it. So, in our lives, we have priorities. So, my priority and my biggest thing was graduating and crossing the stage. So, the study abroad trip and anything else, everything just kind of fell under that. So, already experiencing that made missing out on the trip, not that just wasn't my priority. Me graduating was. So that's the main reason why it was easier. Second reason, this would have been my fourth trip. I would imagine for students, or if it's your first trip, it would have been very disappointing because you're so looking forward to it. But me being so blessed to have already had this experience, even though each trip is different and is beautiful in its own right, I have had three study abroad trips. So it wasn't as hard for me as other students where this was their first trip and they were really looking forward to it. But those are the two reasons why it wasn't so hard for me.
I totally understand that. And I'm sorry that you didn't get to walk yet. Hopefully, there's a finality to it at some point. You do get that. Yeah, I know that especially during the pandemic, we've all felt a sense of loss in one way or another. So I'm sorry that you didn't get this thing that you've worked so hard for. That's really difficult. And I understand now why, the trip didn't feel as big. It makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So, quick question for Megan specifically this time. I don't think that this would fit you, but your program couldn't continue after you returned, did it at all?
No, so this was actually the first time that Peace Corps volunteers have been evacuated globally since the founding of the organization in 1961. So we don't have any volunteers in the field right now, but the programs are set to continue. If the situation evolves, we just have to take it day by day, but there are positions open and we are planning on sending volunteers back into the field.
That's super exciting, and I'm sure many people will be excited to hear about that. And I know a lot of people are really chomping at the bit, for lack of better phrasing, to get back out and go abroad again. And I can see your passion with Peace Corps, so that must be extra exciting for you. Okay, so back to questions I think that suit everybody. So when you reflect on your time that you did get to spend abroad, how do you feel about it? What did you learn from your time abroad? And then what did you learn from your time abroad being canceled or changed or having to leave unexpectedly? So 2 parts. How did you feel about when you got to have that experience? And then how did you feel when it kind of got taken away from you? Marissa, go ahead and kick us off.
So my study abroad was honestly life-changing for me. It was one of the main factors why I changed my major. I realized I really wanted to work with people and I wanted to work internationally. That always had been on the back burner, especially as my father's company was owned by a Japanese company for like the last 10 years. So I heard about cultural gaps, but when I really went over there, I really experienced how different the culture is. I had been to Spain previously and I had not seen a huge culture difference compared to the Eastern and Western culture with like American and Korean specifically cultures. So that really changed my life. And then with my internship, it definitely helped me figure out what I wanted to do. But with everything getting canceled, it really made me realize I do want to work abroad. I really I'm planning on trying to go either teach English or go to grad school in somewhere in Asia after I graduate. I am trying to learn different languages as well. My parents have helped me really think about what I want to do and how I want to go forth, especially since my semester had gotten canceled and I didn't get the quote unquote full study abroad experience from just a 6 weeks because it was very limited instead of the whole semester compared to what a lot of my friends have gotten. So it was definitely think about what you've done, but think about where I can go. And I'm considering doing graduate school. So that's something I'm probably going to do internationally, which this not being abroad has opened that door. I can say, hey, I didn't get to do this abroad, so I'm going to go and do my graduate school. How many years I've been doing that and do that internationally, which is something I'm excited for.
So I am definitely really thankful and so happy that I got to spend 21 months in Ukraine. I definitely wish that I could have spent the full 27, but really like reflecting back on that time and that experience that I had, I'm so thankful for the experience itself, for the relationships that I built and can still maintain today thanks to technology. And then even the timing of coming back to the States, like had it been 6 or 7 months later, I'm not sure that this position that I have now would have been open. So in that way, like the timing really did work out perfectly to end up right where I am. And I'm thankful for that as well in a different way.
So for me, a question like this, I don't want to rush through it. Um, so when I was in middle school, I was in the choir. I was in the school's choir, and we had a performance at Regency Mall. And after the performance, we stopped at Chick-fil-A, and I ordered what the person ordered in front of me because I didn't know what to order. Me and my mom, we didn't go out to eat. I literally had anxiety and felt nervous and scared from ordering from the menu. And when I went to Spain, when I was talking to my mom, she said, Cricket, she said, do they drive in Spain? And I kind of laughed. I said, yes, mom. I said, they drive in Spain. So what does that have to do with answering your question? I just want to give you guys an example of who I am, what my story has been. Unlike Marissa, which I think is amazing that studying studying abroad is something that they had to do. That was a part of her family. That was their life. I knew nothing about study abroad. I knew that there was this place called Africa. I knew that there was this place called Asia, but these were just places that I heard of. Anything pertaining to any other parts of the world is just something if it came up on the news. Studying abroad and traveling is not something that honestly a lot of Black people do. It's not something that you hear of. That's just generally you don't. it's not true for us. And I just kind of looked up some facts. Black students and students of color, the number of us that participate in the study abroad program is very, very low. So when you take, here it is, I was scared just to order something off the menu. And my mom literally didn't know if they drove in Spain. So this was my mom, the woman who raised me. She couldn't give me what she didn't have. So when you put situations like that together and then you ask somebody like me, well, what was it like to study abroad? It was life changing. It was a beautiful experience. I was scared. I had no desire to travel before. So when you just take all those different scenarios, and it was so much more, being a high school dropout, being a teenage mom, when I would hear about study abroad and things like that, this face is not the face that I would see when I would see other students that participated in the study abroad program. I would see white faces. And in 2018, I think Gateway had 4 to 6 trips, and I was the only Black student in all of the trips. So for somebody like me to be so blessed to have the experience to travel the world and to see other cultures, that could be through food, through language, through dress, and just everything that makes a country unique and beautiful within itself. And you take a person like me, and I get the opportunity to experience something like that, my words don't justify what it has done for me. It has changed my life. It is so enriching. It's so beautiful. I want to see as much of this world as possible. And now that I've experienced, I'm like, I would have let fear hold this back. So it has changed me. It has opened me up. It brings about maturity. You think differently when you get to travel and study abroad, because you think about your finances, because you don't want to just throw your money away on stupid stuff when you really could be saving it to have this beautiful experience that you know is out there, and you know that every country and every culture has so much to give and offer. So it makes you think different, and it really changes you, and it has been a complete blessing. If I never got to go anywhere else again, I'm so thankful for what I have already experienced. But now I can't sit down. So I want this pandemic to be over. I want us to be safe, because now I want to go.
I definitely get that. And I appreciate you sharing your story with us, because I think, background, how you were raised, like everything like that definitely contributes to your decisions. And, like the fact that you did it. You did it. You went abroad and you've had so many wonderful experiences. Like, that's so wonderful. And we're just lucky to have you here, a part of the panel today, because I think also, like, just hearing different backgrounds and different stories is so pivotal. And like you said, Black people are underrepresented in study abroad, and that's something that needs to change. You also have 2 people already saying that you should be a study abroad advisor, and I would like to third that statement and back them up, because I think that you are, first of all, are very knowledgeable already, and secondly, very motivational. So consider it as a job option for sure.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
of course. And I mean, honestly, all of you, it seems like you have such like a positive spin on things. It's so nice to hear, because I think for a lot of, I know there's a few advisors here from different institutions for, organizations, whatever it may be. And a lot of the feedback we got, when students had to return, was very like depressing, very sad, very upset, whatever it may have been. So just hearing how you guys really grew and learned, and like were able to pivot as needed, it's so, I mean, it's nice for me to hear. I'm just happy to hear it myself. So my next question was, are you planning to go abroad again? But Marissa's going to do grad school abroad. Karen's waiting for everything to open up. Megan?
It is definitely something that I would love to do at a different point in my career. I think for now, I'm on a track to stay in the United States for at least a few years. Um, but I would love to work abroad again and live abroad again for an extended period of time. And if nothing else, I will definitely be traveling abroad as soon as it's safe to do so.
Awesome. So what would you say to students who maybe are really afraid to go abroad now or afraid to miss out time on campus? You know, I've heard a lot of students who are saying, well, I don't want to study abroad now because I want to be on campus for the time I can be on campus. So let's go around, same order, Marissa, Megan, Karen. What is your biggest piece of advice for those students who are maybe nervous now?
Honestly, a lot of my friends are like this because I have friends in actuarial science, which is a degree you cannot study abroad, and people in pharmacy and science. And my biggest piece of advice is there's always a chance. Like, I was able to go for a summer semester. You could try and do an internship abroad. You can try and do during your break between semesters. Like, our university offers J-Term, which is a January course, and they have abroad courses for specific majors. And I honestly, if you're afraid, just go do it. It will be awesome. I was afraid to go to a completely different culture. I had no idea what I was getting into. I was very worried about being, for once, a minority, which was, I bet some people are probably very afraid of that, especially coming from the United States. So don't be afraid to get yourself out there. And that's also what my friends have also said. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Make sure you are prepared for having issues when you were there. Not everything is perfect. Culture shock is a thing, but it is something you should do at least once in your life. And the best time to do it is when you're young, because once you start getting into your career, it may be harder to go abroad.
I love this question because I was one of those students that was like, well, what am I going to be missing on campus? I don't know if I want to leave my friends and my school for a whole semester. And it was the best thing that I ever did because it led to so many different pathways and career opportunities and just all of these amazing experiences that I really would not have had I not started with studying abroad. So there's always like the what if, and I just thought that the what ifs of not going totally outweighed the ones of missing what I had on campus.
If I met someone who was scared, I would say I know exactly how you feel. As I stated before, I was scared, and I initially had no desire to leave my country. Traveling was not something that my family did. It wasn't a conversation that we had. It wasn't even something that I could look at somebody else do. Just what you go through at the airport and the work and the effort and the time and all that. I had no idea what traveling consists of. But now that I've done it, to imagine what I would have missed out on if I would have let fear hold me back. So I would say I understand your fears, I understand your concerns. To be transparent, not just kind of like the normal fears that we had. Like I said, I was the only Black student. And so I was concerned. I said, when I go to this new country where I've never been, am I going to experience racism? Am I going to be accepted? Am I going to be understood? So I'm the only Black student here in the United States, but now I'm the only Black student with my class, with my school going into a completely new country. Then I'm a plus size woman. How is that going? This is just is. I'm just being for real. I'm just being honest because these are things that we deal with here in the United States. And I wasn't negative. I didn't have stinking thinking, but these were some questions that I had. These were some of my thoughts and my concerns with traveling. But it was the best experience of my life. And so now that I know, if I would have let fear hold me back, so don't let fear hold you back. If you're scared, I get it. Push past it. You'll be so thankful that you did it. Um, Not just the experience, the people that you meet. I mean, I people have said, Karen, when you want to come back to Australia, let me know. So I just the opportunities that are available to you, your campus life, enjoy that, make the most out of that, but you're going to come back to campus and you've experienced that. What you're going to experience and what you're going to see, what you're going to do, who you're going to meet, what you're going to eat, the things that you're going to bring back, the memories, the feelings, the pictures, all of that, you won't feel like you missed out something from that time that you're gone off campus. I would do it all over again. Do not let fear hold you back. You will regret it. I saw Picasso, and even though I'm not a artsy person, I know that there are people literally all over this world, and their life's goal is to see Picasso. And I can say that I saw Picasso. I found out that I like Netherlandish oil painting. I never even would have witnessed that had I not gone. So it's a beautiful experience. Please push past the fears, deal with it. It's okay if you're scared. It's going to be so worth it.
I love that you identified like your art pieces. That's too funny. It's so nice to hear such motivation from you guys as former current students, and really feeling that passion for travel still and getting people abroad. I want to phase into our Q&A portion of the panel, and we have a couple questions listed here. For anybody in attendance who has a question for the panelists, please feel free to prop it in the chat. I have my co-moderators, if you will, managing those for me, so we'll make sure to get through them. So the first question is actually for Marissa, and it says, that must have been very frustrating to feel like your program might have happened if your university did not suspend mobility. Were there any services or opportunities presented to you from your home university to lessen the disappointment?
Not really, to be honest. When I had originally been planning on going in the spring and like the pandemic was starting to get worse, I talked with the study abroad advisor and we had discussed how I could prepare to be on campus. So I definitely was prepared. I had already registered for all my courses originally in the spring when everyone else did, and my school business was very good at working with me, especially with maybe not being here or me being here, what it will do with my graduation, if it's going to affect anything. And my advisor also was very good at helping me. He's helping me look into how I can go abroad again. They've also talked with me about the teaching English abroad. So it's been more after graduation they've helped me with. There wasn't a lot to really help with not being abroad, as I was already in the US. I already had everything ready. The only thing I honestly had to get was my housing for this semester. So I didn't really have any big issues. It's just now doing my postgraduate planning, if I'm going to teach English, where I'm going to be, things like that. But my study abroad office was very good at talking with me as well as answering any questions I had, especially my advisor. He was a lifeline this past couple months. He was very good at helping me. And then when I transitioned to the remote internship, they were good at getting everything updated from my original forms, which I had already filled out, so I didn't have to refill out everything, if that makes sense, because we had to refill entire applications out, which was very helpful because I was also doing my coursework for the fall or for the spring at that time, which was very interesting, I would say.
It sounds like you've been really busy, but it's great that the office was able to help you look at other options and like different opportunities. So I'm glad that you got some support in that way. So next question is for Megan, and it says, is the Peace Corps currently accepting applications? Can people from this call get in touch with you if they're interested in learning more about Peace Corps?
Yes, so the Peace Corps is accepting applications. We are planning to send volunteers back out into countries of service as early as January to March of 2021. Now, don't hold me to that because we're also asking for a little bit of flexibility. Things could change as the situation evolves, but yeah, if you want to get in touch with me, the best way to do so is at my email address. It's mstoltenberg, and my last name is written right in my name, at peacecorps.gov. And you can also visit our website where we have tons of information. Yeah, so I hope to hear from a couple of you after this call now.
That's wonderful. We love connections. If I can get one of my co-moderators to pop Megan's email in the chat, that would be wonderful. And then the next question is for all the panelists. And it's, how are you keeping connections with the people that you met abroad? So let's go in the same order again. Marissa, you're up.
So a lot of my friends I use Kakao Chat because that's that's very big in Korea. It's an app I've kept on my phone even though I'm in the US. I use that. I also use Instagram with other students I met who are from other countries. With I don't have a lot of people like I am still in contact with because I only made a few really close friends. However, I still video call them. I talk to them at least once a week. I make sure to at least make a point of saying something to them to make sure we're very updated because I was supposed to go see them, especially since I was going to be in the same country. That was another thing is I was in contact with a lot of people. With my internship specifically, my advisors reached out and she said if I want to, when I'm at grad school, if I go to grad school in Korea, I can do an internship with them. So I'm staying in contact with that company, which I think is very exciting because I didn't think of that connection to come. But I don't really have as many connections because I was only there for 6 weeks. But I talked to some professors also as well from my summer. Not as much, but I'm on Facebook with one of them. So I do still see what they're doing.
I communicate with all of my friends and even some of my old students on Facebook Messenger. My best friends from my community will talk about once a week and just stay up to date with what everyone's doing and how everyone in my village is going along. And then my students will message me usually through their parents' Facebooks, which is great. And I'm so thankful to be able to do that. I've also taught a couple of lessons from America, which is difficult because I have to get up at like 5 a.m. to do so, but totally worth it. And yeah, with technology, it's actually really easy to keep in touch. And I'm still planning on going back for a visit as soon as it's safe to do so.
I've been keeping in touch through Facebook and WhatsApp. The time difference makes it a little different. You know, I got to make sure that I'm sending them a message at an appropriate time and hour for where they are. But yeah, that's how I do check in from the leaders of the exchange program that we have with Australia. I'll check in with them and say hi and see how they're doing, let them know that I'm thinking about them. But yeah, definitely maintaining those connections.
Megan, that's incredible that you're teaching still at 5 in the morning. Oh my gosh, good for you. And I'll just share a quick 30-second anecdote. When I studied abroad quite some time ago, we don't need to just say when, I met a woman in France when I did my fall break. She was from New Zealand and we got along really well. And I've kept up with her to this day. So we share a love of really bad Hallmark movies. And so when Christmas comes around, we're always tagging each other in the upcoming films and things like that. We don't chat all the time, but she's a lifelong friend. She's come to the US to visit me. I've actually visited her in New Zealand. So you just find the things where you have overlap and you keep those really great connections. All right. We have a really lovely statement from Caitlin, and she just wanted to say that all of you wonderful ladies are so inspiring and well-spoken, and I really appreciate your time. I just wanted to know how you found out about internships and opportunities because I would love to do so, but I'm not sure even where to begin.
So I did mine through my university, especially because I was a freshman when I was first starting to think about it. My study abroad office was a big help. We also have like a website that we can go, like Drake students can go on and access to see all the study abroad programs. And if not one program wasn't technically offered through Drake, you could go like to the office and say, hey, I want to do this. Would this program be okay? Which is what my internship ended up being. I had to get it approved before I could even apply. But I did look through that. I also look on international like websites to see where to study abroad or what programs to go through, especially because for me, Asia was not is not a huge place for American students necessarily to go to, especially Midwesterners. I would definitely say it's because we're very European based. So I went through the Education Abroad Network is based mostly in Asia and Australia. So that program was one I looked at, but I also looked at other programs that were around the world. So if you have a specific country, the best idea is to say, I want to go here what programs are offered and when are they offered. And my internship, I also found out through the Education Abroad Network because I had already gone through them, so I'd known about it. But I also just look online. Like, there's so many places that offer international internships. I would say they come up when I'm looking for jobs now too. So there, if you just search it, it will definitely come up. And there's amazing websites, especially for these programs, if you do want to look for them.
After I studied abroad, I actually started working in the study abroad office at my university. And during that time, I asked everyone for an informational interview just to get to know about their job, their past jobs, if they got to go abroad and how. And through just constantly asking people, I narrowed it down to a couple of options and things that I wanted to do after graduation, Peace Corps being one of them. And when I was pretty set on Peace Corps, I reached out to everyone I could, return Peace Corps volunteers in my area, recruiters in my area, and really just like ask them how I could be a better applicant, what the opportunity was like. So yeah, I would suggest like doing those informational interviews because typically people love to talk about what they do anyway. And it's a great way for you to get to know a little bit more about the field that you're looking to go into.
And I didn't have the experience that Marissa and Megan had. And me being my study abroad experience, it wasn't an internship. And also at Gateway, our study abroad trips are much shorter. So our trips are normally about 10 days to 2 weeks long. Um, but doing things like this, being connected, networking, not being afraid to ask questions. You never know who knows somebody that you really may need to speak to. And when I went to the study abroad conference for the first time, I that's when the idea and the possibility for the first time, literally, I said, wow, if I want to teach English in another country, I could do that. And never ever had that thought, never had that idea, even though I had participated in the study abroad program. So my advice would to be stay active and involved in doing things like this, ask questions, and if that's your desire, you will meet who you need to meet. The doors will open and everything will work out.
It makes sense. Study abroad office, word of mouth. It's how a lot of students find out about study abroad. So all of your explanations definitely make sense. I know we're coming up to the end of our session, so I just wanted to give a huge thank you to Marissa, Megan, and Karen for being here today. You guys have been so patient through everything I've asked from you guys in the panel and outside of that, especially with me forgetting the Zoom link at first. So thank you for being here and being a part of this. A huge thank you as well to the rest of the LFA Chicago team for putting all this together. We can't do what we do without also the attendees. So thank you all for being here. Really excited to be kicking off LFA Chicago's new branding and new website and everything that comes with it with such a rock star team. We really look forward to bringing you future programming that helps returnees reflect, grow, and connect thanks to their study abroad experiences. And I also want to give a special mention that LFA National next month will be hosting a weekend-long virtual conference. This virtual conference is being supported by universities and groups all over the country that would normally host their own in-person event this fall. And they wanted to join forces to make one amazing LFA conference that's free to attend. We even have staff members from LFA Chicago helping out with that. So if you enjoyed today's event and you're wanting more sessions to unpack your experience, this is a great opportunity. The event is October 9th, 10th, 16th, and 17th. So there's going to be a day that suits your schedule, I really hope. And we'll email out more information on that event, including how to register since you've attended. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us today and supporting LFA Chicago.